For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dana Miller. I'm a postdoctoral researcher here at the Fisheries Center. Unfortunately, Anna couldn't be here today, so she's asked me to introduce our next speaker for the Fish 500 seminar series. So I am honored today to introduce our next speaker, our very own Dr. Rashid Sumaila. He's the director of the Fisheries Economics Research Unit here at the Fisheries Center, and I'm sure many of you are probably quite familiar with his research. He specializes in bioeconomics, marine ecosystem valuation, and the analysis of global issues such as fisheries subsidies, illegal fishing, climate change, and oil spills. Sumaila is widely published with over 160 articles in peer-reviewed journals, including Science, Nature, and the Journal of Environmental Economics and Management. Sumaila has won a number of awards, such as the American Fisheries Society's 2013 Excellence in Public Outreach Award, the Leopold Leadership Fellowship in Stanford, and the Pew Fellowship for Marine Conservation. And today, Rashid will be talking to us about some research that has just recently been published, though it's an idea that I believe he's been talking about and thinking about for quite some time now. So I'll leave it at that. If you could all join me in welcoming Dr. Rashid Sumaila.
Thank you very much, Dana, for introducing me. And like Dana said, this is, I'll be talking about results from a paper that we just got published. And there are many co-authors in the room. I'll show you the list later. Dana is one of them. So that's the title. And conservation economics, many of you will be wondering, what the hell am I talking? So I'll try to explain that. We go on. So this is the outline. I start off by laying the ground, foundation. I'll talk about how the study came about, a little bit of history and the evolution of the idea, and then I talk about conservation economics and define it. Then, because this is linked to food security, I will then talk a little bit about what is meant by food security in general, so that then after that I go into the meat of the presentation, which is closing the high seas. So this is our ocean. That's, the blue areas are the exclusive economic zones. This is areas 200 nautical miles away from the coast, as defined by the United Nations UNCLOS, UN law. The sea, too. Most countries approve that. Even those who didn't actually go by that definition. In the US, for example. It is the light blue areas. And the area we'll be talking about today is the high seas. And these are the dark blue areas. As the largest part of the ocean, it's about, who knows, how much is it? What's the size of the high sea compared to the whole ocean? 50? 60. 60, 58, 60%. There you go. So that's larger than the EEZ. And that's something to watch as I go through, right? And the thing that got me into thinking about this is, if you look at global catches, 80 million tons is an estimate people use a lot from FAO data. About 10, 12%, 15% come from the high seas, okay? So you have 80% plus, 85 coming from the EEZ. So I started thinking about this in 2005, actually, just coming from the economics. Here you are, you have an area, you get 90% of the catch close to shore, 90% of close to shore, right? And the area is less than half of the whole ocean. And we get 10%, 12% from this larger area. Thinking of the economics, this seems to be, you start thinking, is it a sensible thing to do? How much more effort do you need to catch a ton of fish in the high seas versus the EEZ? So from the economics, I started wondering, if I own the ocean, will I really fish in the high seas? Think of burning of carbon. You have to travel far. You have to search for more fish in a less dense area. So that was what started me in this direction. And I remember I raised this in the group. Daniel was there. He talked, don't even try. This is so unreasonable. It will go anywhere, right? I mean, close in the high seas. Who will support that? So actually, that kind of slowed this idea a bit, but I still wouldn't give up. So I did this paper together with the co-authors there, Well, what I did was simply to say, what would we lose if we were to close the high seas? So this is just a preliminary idea. Just went in there, look at the catches, shut down, 0 catches from the high seas. What will the world lose? And so, catches, the losses, in terms of the revenues, and in terms of the dollars. And in the paper, I kind of waved hands with my colleagues, and we said, okay, it seems like we wouldn't lose much if we did this. And then the idea went quiet, right? It went quiet, we didn't do anything about it. Then a few years back, the Global Ocean Commission was set up. This is a commission made up of really high-ranking political and financial banking leaders. Paul Martin is one of them, former Prime Minister of Canada. You have David Miliband, former Foreign Secretary of the UK. I have Emmanuel Trevor, who was Mandela's first finance minister. So this is a caliber of people, about 16 of them, spread all over the world. There is this Nigerian lady, Obia, who is on the panel. She was one of those who started Transparency International, the Corruption Index. She was one of the co-founders. So these are the people. And they asked me to kind of support them in terms of looking at economics. So 2003, there was the first meeting of the commission in South Africa, Cape Town. Asked me to come. And they kept saying, you know, we want to do something bold about it, protecting and managing high seas. So I went up there and I told them, you really mean what you say? They shut down the high seas. And half of them thought I was crazy. And there's this former Australian foreign minister, he's on the panel. At dinner, he came to me and said, okay, Rashid, we had your craziest idea today. What would be the next crazy idea tomorrow? So this was the reaction I got. But some of them liked it, like the former Prime Minister of Costa Rica, Jose Maria. He just loved this idea. So some liked it and it kept going on. So this report we did for them actually. And in there was preliminary analysis. And based on that, actually, one of their recommendations, I will show you, was based on our report. There we just look at catch data. So, and this led into this paper, which just appeared. I presented it at the AAAS 2 weeks ago. Got a lot of press. Dana has been tracking, and I'm sure Dana will be happy to share the paper and some of the key news interviews that came out of. So this is what I'm going to talk to you, share some of the details. And you see the co-authors, quite many. Vicky, Dana, Louise, Raj is in Australia, those who don't know Raj. Dirk is here, William is here, Isabel from SFU, Alex Rogers, Oxford, Callum Roberts, York University, Henrik Sala, National Geographic, called Daniel Pauli. I don't need to introduce you. So, what do I mean by conservation economics? You know, when you start your career, students listen, you're fishing around and trying to work out something. You get your PhD, you start your postdoc, you get an assistant professor. After 20 years, you start realizing what you've been trying to do all these years. You look back. And it seems to me more and more, this is my thing. And that means I would like to look at the ocean as a system. Thinking of the biology, the economics, the markets, it's a system. You know, it's nice to understand how one fish behaves. That is great, but knowing about the whole system is very important. Has to be large scale, high scale, global, regional, national. It is an ecosystem wide, and it has to be interdisciplinary. No biologist can solve this problem. No economist can do it. No, you got to get people together. So some of my students are lawyers, right? So it has to be interdisciplinary. And all this comes into, so you have to think of ocean health. You have to think of dollars. We all have to. At least you need it for your coffee, right? Dollars are important. And you have to think of the social side of things. And so that is what I classify as conservation in relation to the oceans. I just saw this quote from the president himself. And he says, focusing your life solely on making the bar shows a certain poverty of ambition. Isn't that beautiful? Well said. He said more. This is just enough. So making our ocean just to sell us our dollars and our economies is a poverty of ambition. There are bigger things. You have to maintain the ecosystem. You have to think of who gets the money. So you have to think of the money, of course, but it shouldn't be solely. So that is my economics. That is what 20 years has led me to. Now, food security, what is that? 4 elements there. Food has to be available for everybody, okay? Has to be accessible. Utilization. People have to have the ability to use the food. Sometimes you have the food and there's no water. You have to go to some villages in the developing world. Have your corn, water to boil the corn. So it has to be available. And stability is important, even in times of crisis. This is from the UN. So when you think of food security, this is the general understanding. And there are issues here. Why? Because ecological foundation is important to our food system. And the ocean is one of them, in addition to agriculture. And we know that our actions are threatening these systems. We can argue how much, but I think everyone. Is there anyone who doesn't believe that we are doing too much to our ocean and air systems? In this room, raise your hand. Nobody, thank God. Indeed, you don't think so? Why not? Better, you're close to my office, be careful. It's just, it's fine. I just wanted to see. So, in general, most people believe that we need to do something to really keep our systems progressing. Now, let's get to the ocean. Linking to the point I made, inadequate management. The high seas are actually not completely free for all. We have RFMOs, and some of them are doing well, better than others. But in general, the management, many of us think it's not being managed relative to the EEZs. And why? Anyone who goes into Canadian waters without permission will see somebody check them, right? But the high seas, there's no such mandate. So overfishing and population decline, people have shown that this is happening for at least some of the species out there. Bycatches are problem, habitat destruction, bottom trawling, and so on. So these are issues that people have talked about. This is some grass for you. Most of them are looking down, a few looking, one looking up, some are a bit stable. But in general, that is the kind of picture you see for some of the species that we take out from the high seas. Additional concerns, deep sea species, some of them long-living, and so very vulnerable to fishing. Some live longer than people, right? As far as the biologist told me. So you need to fish them carefully, or not at all. Much of the deep ocean is actually not well understood here. So if you don't know something, most of us will say, be careful. Careful what you do, because you don't understand the system. And many high sea fisheries will not be viable without government subsidies. In this paper, we actually did a quick estimate of bottom trawling, high seas and the deep seas. And what we found is government subsidies to the vessels that go out was about 25% of the landed values. The revenues they make, 25%. And the profits, 10%. That tells you already, like, most of them will not be able to fish without your money. Okay? That's economic. So, some of you know Barbara Block, the tuna champion, and she has shown a lot of interaction between tunas in the EEZ and the high seas. I think that's one of our big points. So if you don't manage the high seas, well, even if you manage your EEZs, well, you may suffer negative consequences. Because you know what? The fish don't respect the borders we put. We put lines, the fish don't know that, right? It is our own demarcation, administrative. And they don't need visa to get into anybody's waters, right? So what? If you're sitting here, somebody messes there, you may be impacted because of the interactions. And that is one big point for me. So one of the first things we did was to take the total global catch and say how much of this comes solely from the high seas, how much solely from EEZs, how much are from species that straddle between the two, right? These are the numbers we got in an earlier analysis. What was shocking is that less than 0.4% of the species, according to our data and analysis, remember this is fact, not perfection. If you are in science, you are not in the business of perfection. These are estimates. Right? But less than 1.5% actually of the species we could identify live only in the high seas according to the catch, where we catch them. And the big chunk, 42%, are straddling. And when you think in terms of weight, 67%. In terms of money, 78% of the total landed value, almost $100 billion, is actually fish species that do this. So very big point. And it was on the strength of these numbers that the Global Ocean Commission actually came up with some suggestions, and I'll get to that. The other point we found was that 10 top highest fishing nations take away about 70% of the landed value, right? This international waters belongs to all of us. 10 countries appropriate 70%. So that quickly led me thinking, my God, the Pope is talking about inequality. The President is talking about inequality. Have you ever heard Harper talk about inequality? I'm not sure, I haven't seen that. But I've seen President Obama talking about inequality. And this could be one of the root causes, right? And this is serious, not because you have a good heart, because it's good for you, right? To really think of inequality. So one of the most enduring practical problems of human society, according to Pelton, is the issue of distribution. And Stiglitz, Nobel Prize winning economist, says inequality has great economic, political, and social consequences. So everybody should care about it as a point, not because you love those being messed up by the system, but because it's actually good for you. So this then came into analysis. So there are 2 points here. If you close the high seas, what will that do to catches and dollars? And what will that do to the distribution of the benefits from the high seas to countries, coastal countries of the world? Right? So whilst we were doing this, Chris Costello and his postdoc, Carl White, were also thinking about this. So they did a model, which they published in 2013. Very rough model. I think there were lots of criticism, but they did it, and they came out with results. And the results is that actually would make more money by closing the high seas. This is beautiful. You know, when Sumaila and Rashid Costello say the same thing, usually people start to listen. Most of the time we go after each other. So that is nice. And then the Global Ocean Commission also came out with their report. And one of the things they had in there is that if the world, because it's a political group, they couldn't say close the high seas, and it was a big argument. In fact, I was surprised at the agreement they got. What they said is, if in 5 years the world doesn't come up with a good management system for the high seas, then we should turn the high seas into high seas generation zone. Right? Beautiful word. So, and if you look at our paper, we call this, make the high seas the fish bank of the world, which is the same concept actually. So the fish can hide there, away from our big guns, our big boats for a while, grow, spawn more, lay eggs, and then, you know, float through and hopefully help. So that is the Global Ocean Commission. What did we do about this? We started asking questions now. If we actually close the high seas, what percentage increase in the catch of straddling taxa within EEZs will likely make closing the high seas catch neutral? I was very interested in this because when you mentioned this, the first thing people complain about is we're going to lose big catches, right? So I said, how about we explore this? What percentage of the high seas strata increase. If we close the high seas, what percentage increase because of transferage in the EEZ? What percentage increase will make catch neutral? All right. So if you're taking 80 million tons, we still take 80 million tons because then you take away the food security argument. So we explored that. And then we compared this because Costello's paper, they had a range of things they ran and some scenarios they did. So we compared that. So our point is if our catch neutral percentage is way out of the range, then this doesn't make sense in terms of food security. But if it is reasonably within the range, yeah, maybe. So that was the point there. And then we go into the politics, because even if it is good for the world, how about is it good for you? Yeah. And so you have to go there. So we looked at which countries, political groupings and continents stand to be not lose. And then what are the distribution I mentioned to you. How will that change? So, and then method. And this is where technically we can challenge it. This method is based about specialization, and this is the Sierra data, specializing of FAO data, putting them in half degree by half degrees. Okay? And based on that, determine the percentage increase in the catch of straddle in that wood. This is the question I posed. And then compare this was the range in White and Costello's paper. They did a sweep of 10 to 70%. Because we don't really know. I remember we're economists, right? I don't know about how fish move. That's not my point. It's just to make a big point. And so we just sweep things within the range to see what is reasonable. Okay, so, and then we do the regional, global, and all that. And then we assess the distribution. And how many of you have heard about the Gini coefficient as the key indicator used to measure inequality of income within countries or within groups? So we calculated that. And this was one of the conversations we were going home in Ghana. We started talking about this and I said, maybe you should calculate the Gini coefficient, you know, to capture this. So we went ahead and it added a lot of value because a lot of the people who are interested in this are actually those who care about inequality in the world. So this is powerful. And then 10 to 70, and actually the Costello paper, they were closer to 42 was where there's increase in straddling stock. So that gives you some benchmark, right? The rate was 10 to 70, and we found that if the increase is up to 18% of stocks that straddle, then you'll be catch neutral. Nice, 18%, which actually falls nicely closer to the 10% level, and well below the 42%. Gave me some hope. Now it's for some biologists to prove this right or wrong. I'm waiting for you guys. Okay, so that is one thing. And if you just take if you take the 18% increase, which is about on the low side of things, this is a picture of the countries that will lose in red and those who will gain in blue. Right? So most of the worst countries will gain, the coastal ones I'm talking about. And then, of course, those who fish a lot will lose, right? Everything being equal. But that's the picture we're seeing. Key points, big countries actually will make money, and least developed countries will make money. There is an issue there with Pacific Island states who will be losing money. But the question is, who is actually losing money? Because they sign a lot of flag of convenience, and I'll talk about that later. So, if you look at the 18%, 4 continents will be fine, 2 will lose, that's the 18%. But that's not the best scenario. If you look at the 42% of Costello, actually every continent will make money. And so your problem is within continents, those who lose, how to deal with them. And there are all sorts of ways you can do that, right? You can even buy them off or pay them off or write them, whatever. But that is for another analysis to look into. In theory, so now the equity side. This is This is a summary of the results. The Gini coefficient. Essentially what the Gini coefficient tells you is, if you take 1% of the population, or whatever you're looking at, what percentage of the benefits do they get? So the 45-degree line tells you that 1% of the population get 1% of the income, 20%, 20%, 100%. So that is equal, really an equal society. There's no such society in real life. Amazing. And then when we calculated for the current situation where 10 countries take 70%, this is what you get. And the area between the 45-degree line and the curve is your coefficient. So currently it's about 0.66, 66%. All right? Which is really, if you look at countries, this is about the worst distribution we have in terms of countries, in terms of income. Does anybody know the country with the worst distribution of income in the world today? Huh?
North Korea.
North Korea, no.
The U.S.
US, okay. Any other tribes?
Brazil.
Huh?
Brazil.
Japan?
Russia.
Dubai? Actually, no. It's amazing, huh?
Brazil.
Not Brazil.
Mexico, Russia.
Okay, I should tell you now. South Africa, okay? And you all know why. The history tells you. So it's South Africa, okay? 0.66. And then the best countries, about 0.33, that you can guess for sure. Sweden, Norway, Denmark. So by doing this, you turn the world of high seas fishing into the world of South Africa, world of Norway or Sweden. Which one do you like? So that is a nice result, I think. So this is just a summary, and I'm looking at time. We should get time to discuss. But essentially, at the 42, like I showed you, all continents will guess, will make more catches, more money. 60%, 50%. All continents fine. US, China, and Japan will actually be on the plus side. EU members. So it's really looking good if this is proven to be right. And this is just the beginning of of analysis. And then Taiwan and South Korea will lose on every scenario. So these are countries that the world will have to find a way to get them to go. So, discussion and conclusion. Conservation economics. Economics that is environmentally sensitive. Sensitive to the economics. And also socially sensitive. And it seems that if you close the high sea, you'll be able to improve all of this. Our problem will be how to get those who currently are gaining to agree to. Our findings also suggest that closing the high seas is unlikely to lead to risk to food security through reduction in catches and incomes. It is more likely that closing the high seas will enhance this. Okay, so this is just the tip of the iceberg. As I said, we do these big idea things, you throw them out, and the work just begins. A lot to be done here. And these are already initiatives within this house that are ongoing. I told you that island states seem to be doing badly. And our suspicion is that because a lot of them sign flag of convenience agreements with countries. So the question is, who is actually losing? Is this Samoa or any other of those countries that's losing, or is it the flag, the owner of the flag, right, that they sold to them? And Dana is looking into that now. Then there is the question of, so far we haven't included cost at all. So Rebecca, somewhere here, about to start looking at the cost of fishing and how that plays out. And Louise likes socioeconomics a lot, and she loves her community fishes and small-scale fishes. So the question she'll be looking at is, what will be the impact to people in small communities? And of course, William is there pushing the climate story. What does this mean? Climate change. Will it add more resilience or not? Will the distribution of benefits change? How? So that is that. And I think at this point, I would just thank all of you for being so patient to get this story. Now it's your turn to go after me here. And my co-authors are here, so they can help me out. Go ahead, you. So
I agree with the idea that the closing high seas will make the enforcement and monitoring easier, or to make it straightforward. But I don't know if closing the high seas and making some of the strategies drop shared stock address the core issue of shared stock, which is the strategic interaction between countries that leads to President Obama kind of outcome where it's better for individually to just hammer the feedstock down and then everybody else worry about conservation. So I don't know how would that change?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. I got something similar in a radio interview about, somebody said, but in a different forms. We know that some of the countries really do a bad job of managing their needs. And now you're telling them to manage. What does that mean? So that's similar. And what I said then is, this story, this proposal, is not fancy. It's not going to solve all our problems. In fact, it has to be combined with many other measures. And one of them is to improve management of the EEZs. That's a big issue, right? It's far from perfect. Yeah. So that's one point. Strategically, getting to your strategy, I think that, you remember the saying when they say that necessity is the mother of invention, right? So strategically, I think if you close up the high seas, and all that countries can do is to fish within their waters, the incentive to manage their waters better. Wow.
Even for the shared stock?
Yeah, even for the shared stock, they will have to negotiate. That is a bit more complicated. But in general, right, if you don't have options, then you take what you have much better. Than in fact, Japan can just move to West Africa. These are all speculations. But yes, let's go.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic, controversial, fun to debate. So I take it as really academic, so it's open for debate.
Oh, beautiful. Let's go.
And so you're an economist.
Yes.
You look at biology a bit, ecology a bit, but you've got to consider the ecology and biology of a lot of these creatures, because there are big sustainable yields to be had by a lot of tuna species. We want to eat our sushi. We like to have albacore, big eye, yellowfin tuna. Sushi basically and bluefin. A lot of these species basically are easily caught offshore. The big sustainable yields to be had, perhaps easier to catch offshore. And the spawning grounds and nursery grounds are actually near shore inside the EEZs. So if you basically said, oh, you got to catch these species near shore, basically limiting the fishing to their spawning grounds and their nursery areas, which you really don't want to do for a lot. And there are proposals to close areas. It may not be very successful. You distribute effort in an inappropriate way. But so there are a lot of issues that this would really fail on in terms of yield per recruit and catching fish that are, let's say, preferable for the market in terms of size and quality. You don't want to be catching juveniles. And so this proposal flies in the face of fish ecology for a lot of the major species that we catch offshore.
Very good. Very good. I mean, you want to follow on that? You want to answer it for me? Or? Go ahead. Go.
I don't want to sound like I'm in Murdoch's corner necessarily, but there's a general point here that you just said there's only 1.5% of these stocks are dedicated to the high seas. You use that to justify, on the one hand, that this is a good thing because we have access to that resource, and then on the other hand, you come up with some idea that we're going to do some protection then. So that doesn't make sense to me.
Really?
Then you start to list some of the other negatives that could happen. Like you could be forcing more fishing into these nearshore areas where there are traditionally higher bycatch rates, higher problems with interaction with other species, things like that.
Yeah.
And then you accept that. The way that it's distributed now fishing is because they're trying to maximise profit. So for whatever reason, they're out there on the high seas right now. So if you are restricting them to this arbitrary, certainly ecologically and biologically arbitrary line, you're costing people something. So I guess my question, following up from what Murdoch said about problems with ecology, and the fact that I can think of so many doubts I've got over whether or not this seems like a reasonable proposal, do you accept those doubts? And if you do,
No, I mean, yeah.
But that's the thing. Just imagine there's 100,000 people who are going to be a little bit less well off and a little bit less food. How, with the weight of that consequence, and given what I think are a series of very reasonable doubts, how do you defend it? How can
No, see here, okay. I try to take both of them. this is something I expect, right? You know, you throw out this idea and then you get reactions. What do you need to do, especially with the ecology? I told you, we're sweeping scenarios, and I have co-authors here that will answer more closely to the ecology. What you do when you throw out these ideas is to force people to work harder and actually prove it or not prove it. So you have to do some work, you and your colleagues, on the ecology, and we'll see what happens is out there. It can be proven wrong, all right, but that's that. And you, what were you saying? I don't even get what you're saying.
I think there's
actually,
I think there's serious, almost certain consequence, at least in the short term. And that means the weight of evidence has to be strong, surely.
Obviously. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay? We're going to really explore this, and I'm sure people are going to explore this. And you don't just run off and implement, right? An idea like this, it takes time to work through. Daniel, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, two things. First of all, on the species that can be profitably exploited, or in terms of the open recruit, only if they are in the high seas. That would have to be demonstrated that it is the case for every species. You mentioned bluefin. It has been exploited for centuries, for millennia, bluefin, by traps that are attached to land in the Mediterranean. And that was sustainable fisheries. It was not in the high sea fisheries, and they were fishing adults. The same thing would apply to the western stock of bluefin that has been traditionally exploited by harpoons off the coast of Canada. So you would have to demonstrate this objection that they can be profitably and adequately, in terms of year per recruit, for example, exploited only offshore. And the second point is, obviously, even if we are very optimistic about the politics of it, and we have no reason to be really optimistic about anything of it like that, this would never be implemented en bloc, but it would be implemented area by area. For example, this could be a justification for closing various donut holes that exist in the Pacific, and closing donut holes, because the donut holes have traditionally caused immense problems, and the UN is dealing with it. This is halfway solved in the South Pacific, but I see also other areas around the Orkney Islands, which have in Antarctica, which have no EEZ. This could be a justification for doing it. This will never pass, for example, the UN General Assembly, or maybe 50 years. But it can provide the framework for partial and local solution.
In fact, I have an example on that. When I presented this in South Africa, there was a Russian, high-ranking Russian official on the panel. And he didn't like this at all. He kicked at me like crazy. And I always smile, because it's part of the fun. Nobody has kicked at you before. You haven't done anything, guys, okay? Remember that. So this guy, the next time we met, you know why he came to me and said, maybe your thing has made me to start thinking, maybe we should close all the areas where the RFMOs are not active. He has moved. So that is also an important point. And Tom, just a minute. The thing is, you are assuming that by doing this, a lot of people will lose. You don't have any evidence. In fact, what we are saying is that people may gain, right? So that's...
I'm saying that we know in the short term they will.
Yeah,
because
short
they
term,
behave in a certain way, and you're arbitrarily finding something else.
Yeah. So we'll do more studies.
But if the fuel subsidy issue, wouldn't you just get to this? Wouldn't you have to just forget this arbitrary lines? What about your great suggestion to reduce the fuel subsidy, which might have this effect anyway?
You know what? That is also on the table. I'm not taking that off the table. We haven't even been able to do that, you know. Anyway, let's get somebody on.
Rashid, I'm just curious. I very much like what Danielle said, and it's very true. Locally, the closure would work, and potentially temporary too. But what you're suggesting here is a global. I just wonder why you need it to do as a global scale. I understand this is something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And particularly for international community, last month we had just BB&J
I know.
start passing through, and the process has just started. And the next year is fish stock agreement review. So there's two big processes coming up for particularly struggling fish stock. And this, I just wonder if this sort of proposal, I mean, I know you're not speaking, would actually slow the negotiation down. I understand for the BB&J, there are countries who doesn't really want to talk about fisheries in that process. I understand for the fish stock, they don't really talk so much about ecosystem-based management, yet both sides really want to push it.
Yeah.
And this kind of like a very grandiose kind of idea, do you think it would inspire them, or would it be more discredited, particularly, if I may say, GOC, it's not a bunch of scientists supporting, it's politicians. And I just wonder what their agenda is. I mean, particularly, I met one of the operations coming from Japan. She knew nothing about ocean.
Yeah, but that was also on purpose. Scientists have been talking all sorts of things and nobody listened. So that was to use heavy duty political and business people. So that's another strategy. It's just another strategy, right? And they are supported by scientists, right? Paul Martin will come to me and don't tell him this. I know I'm being recorded. Say, Rashid, can I say this? Can I say that? You go and ask the ecologist. So they are aware that they are not fisheries scientists. They get that, but just like they run your countries, your prime minister, I don't think. So that's the purpose. So that's the purpose of this. Right?
I just hear, without knowing any of the context, they just take the idea and come with it. That's what I'm hearing about.
But that's one point. Your second point was what? Whether this will help the processes in the US. I really don't know. I don't know. But my feeling is that it could actually push some of the countries at least. It could, because, and there are two ways. You know, I've given talks about this at the UN, three groups. Africa groups, they love it. Caribbean groups, they love it. And Pacific Island groups, they love it because they can't go there to fish. So that's already about 77 countries or more. They love this. So you could see some people pushing for it. And those who don't want to do something may also be pushbacks. Because they see the trend. If they don't fix it, the world may decide. And this is outside the scope of a politician. If enough of the world's population want this, we get it, okay? Tom. Yeah, if they want it, and we can just convince them by evidence. And if you have a counter, please write your papers, Tom. That is the way you do it. This is academic work. Get out there with your ideas, and we'll see. Because it's a market for ideas, right? So, yes.
This was the same thing with the EZ. If we try to think of ourselves in the 50s. In the 50s, a few countries, Iceland, Peru, claimed a patriotic sea. The Peru called it patriotic sea. This was completely absurd to the US fishing interest at the time for tuna, and they dismissed it. And the British fought a war over Iceland, extending the jurisdiction. But at the same time, there were countries that saw the writing on the wall. Germany did not participate in that war. They had other things to sort out at the time. And Britain had to swallow the extension. Japan had to swallow the extension. Japan lost access to lots of waters that it seemed to depend on. And it was, if you read papers from the 50s, the imagination imagining that 200 miles would be closed was total science fiction. In fact, there was a big fight to extend 3 miles, the territorial sea from 3 miles to 12 miles. And it was a huge fight. And it was done. And by consensus, even the US could not disagree. And then they realized that they benefit from it. And when they suddenly realized that they benefit from it, boop, they swung around, and Japan had to swallow that they didn't have access to people's waters.
Okay.
And I think the same thing could happen here.
Oh yeah, no, it could happen overnight, Tom, before you wake up. You know, this is the world. The world moves by ideas. Who else wants to talk? I see your hands up. You know, you can go up. Please go ahead.
It's totally inappropriate, isn't it, to compare equality of individuals, that metric, the Gini coefficient, of individuals in a country to equality amongst countries which have different regional resource access. I mean, you wouldn't say we need equality in coffee production. Like
people say.
Okay, but this is going to be a problem in Scotland, okay, I'm just saying.
All right, Scotland, they can join Britain, that will be fine.
Due to the way that countries have existed and the resources that they have, their economies are based on things like high seas fishing. It's not unfair to other people. You can't treat it like you treat equality of opportunities for individuals in a country. I just can't believe that's appropriate.
Wait, according to Tom, okay?
Okay.
According to Tom.
Yeah,
that's it, and that's all right. Hey, you don't want to talk? It shouldn't be Tom alone or Daniel. I want the discussion, right? But a follow-up to what you were saying, there was something that came to my mind. It will come a very good example of what you were saying about the impossible suddenly becoming impossible. It's almost always impossible until it happens, right? You guys know the history of the world, right? So this is where we are, some of us crazy, but fun.
I guess it seems like one of the major arguments in favor here is that poor management of the high seas, the ocean commons, will be fixed by removing opportunities there and concentrating all the opportunities in the individual countries, in the individual economic systems. And that seems very similar to like the ITQ type arguments that we've seen, in different situations in different countries, and we haven't really been happy with a lot of the outcomes when we move to this ITQ or how do we expect different outcomes when we move to individual countries controlling chunks of stocks or chunks of fish resource without that common still there? I don't know. It strikes me that.
So you mean by closing the high seas in a way that is equivalent or close to declaring ITQs? I don't see the connection there.
Well, currently the high seas are like an open access fishery, right?
Okay.
Your intention is to remove the open access fishery. All fishing will now be done within EEZ, and they're all controlled by
States.
Individual states, yeah. We get a lot of, when we commodify fish stocks from open access to individual controlled quotas, we got a lot of undesirable outcomes. So I guess I see a parallel here, and I'm wondering if I'm just crazy.
Yeah, it seems so. I just don't.
If we move to a situation where, different countries, we're saying we want to remove this global
open
management, this global, or these regional.
So Mike, you are
not happy with their outcomes, but it feels awfully naive to
So are you
outcomes from a.
So are you advocating open access all over, or what? Is that what you want?
No.
No, he doesn't want open access. So we can move. Yeah.
I think he's saying about consistency. So if at the moment there is RFMO and there is a consistency agreement, which whatever FMO put as a fishery management, and the state has to follow. But if we just shut down ITQ at all, we have nothing to keep the consistency with, which actually may weaken state management. So state could do anything, whatever they like to do, but within their EEZ, because there's nothing they have to follow with. High sea is completely shut down. But at the moment, fish stock agreement, BWJ, something, all that sort of things, you start considering about UN explorative fisheries, those things which developing in the high seas. It's not doing great, I agree with you.
Okay, all right.
But whether we have some standard somewhere or not at all, I thought maybe that's something might.
So if we keep the RFMOs and close where RFMOs are not active, will you be happy? I'm negotiating with him now.
I think the thing is even if you close the high seas,
Yeah.
you'll still need IPTC or WCPSC to allocate the catch of tuna quota between countries because
Maybe, maybe.
because those fish are still accessible
have to
in each
negotiate.
debt, and therefore any shared stock. And so the negotiation has to be done. And so either high seas being closed or open, we'll still need to fix the RFMOs before we can expect any kind of improvement.
Yes, okay, that's a comment.
So basically what you're saying is that all of the fish that are within a economic exclusion zone are owned by the state that controls the economic exclusions. And that any fish that swim across EEZs and the high seas are only owned when they're in the EEZ of a particular country.
Yes, that's true.
So going back to the ITQ thing, you're essentially saying that each state has an individual quota that is perhaps not transferable, but is an quota essentially based on when the fish are actually in their waters.
Yeah, and that is actually the power of the proposal. Because then you have the country. You remember in 1995, right? Captain Canada, you know? Everybody was born in this room. Yesterday I gave a lecture at the public school here, Prince of Wales. And I was saying, oh, in 1995 there were issues, Spain and Canada, right? You remember? And then I suddenly realized this is a high school. So I said, well, is there anyone here who was not born in 1995? And actually, they were all not born. Yeah, so 1995, you remember the fight where the Canada, Tobin Bryan, he nearly became prime minister because of this. Both sitting at the outskirts, just grabbing court, according to the story. I wasn't there. So that's the kind of thing you will solve. You don't catch anything when they're out there because it's for everybody, but when they come to your waters, it's your property. And that is a channel to which we hope this will lead to better management, more catches, more equity.
But you can catch all of the fish that into your waters.
Okay, that is another issue. No, I don't know of any country that is that crazy to say my policy is to empty the ocean. Most of them say it's sustainability. There might be problems they are not able to implement. That's another problem. So,
I think we have to wrap that up.
Very good, wrap up.